Hello, I'm Brendan Bellomo, co-director of Porcelain War.
Hello, I'm Slava Leontyev, co-director of Porcelain War.
And I'm Christopher Hampton, and I saw the film on Tuesday evening in London. And I do want to I want to start by congratulating you on it. It's a extremely moving, powerful film. I mean, documentaries, as the name implies, usually kind of document historical event or a character or a crime or something in real life. But this belongs to a different, I think, category of documentaries, which is because it's a poetic documentary, and it's a and it builds an impression of a very unusual specifics condition, and I think it's very skillfully put together. And I wanted to start by just asking you both because it was put together in rather a complicated and elaborate way, I understand, how the film came about and what were the stages of leading up to your work together.
Yeah, absolutely, Christopher. I can begin. Thank you so much for your kind words. I mean, this story, in essence, starts quite a long time ago. Actually, one of our producers grew up under Russian oppression in communist Poland, Aniela Sidorska, and she became a political refugee when her parents escaped to the United States. And about 8 years ago, she discovered Anya and Slava's works, and she was so moved by them, really emotional, because they reminded her of home. And she shared them with me, and I was speechless. I couldn't believe that something so small could contain such vast stories. And the four of us, actually, as two couples, Slava and Anya, husband and wife, creating this porcelain, and Anyala and I working in film, we began a collaboration on an animation project. But before we could get far, Russia invaded Ukraine, and we called up Slava and Anya to say, "When are you leaving? What's happening? Are you safe?" And they said, Slava, he told me, no, we're going to stay. We're going to keep making our art at night. And I asked him, what are you doing during the day? And he told me, for the very first time, I'm in the Ukrainian Special Forces and I'm teaching civilians, everyday people, peaceful, pacifists who feel they have no other choice to learn how to use weapons. And in this moment, in one 30-second span, I heard there were these two forms of resistance. One, people trying to save their culture, their families, their homes, and another, creating something new. You don't think of creativity and war together. And Slava at the time felt there was, a valuable perspective from Western journalists, but it was one from outside. And so I wanted to empower him. We wanted to figure out a way that we could bring a camera into Ukraine and allow him to tell his story through his own eyes. And what ended up happening was we were confronted with an extreme set of barriers. We were 6,000 miles apart. We were in two different countries, different time zones. We did not speak the same language. You'll hear today Slava's English has gotten very good, but we couldn't even speak a word to each other then. So the first challenge was met because we realized while you can't reliably ship something into a war zone, there was a network of volunteers, and it was a hairdresser, a makeup artist. It was a makeup artist in New Jersey who was moving medical supplies out of her apartment. It was incredible. She was stockpiling up to 3,000 pounds of, body armor and tourniquets. And she said, I'll carry these. I'll bring the camera to Slava. And when the camera arrived, we began to work over Zoom with an interpreter. And Slava and our cinematographer, Andrei, they had never used the camera before. And so what we realized, though, is that they were master visual storytellers. They had such strong instincts. We needed only to figure out a way that they could translate them into cinema. So we created an impromptu film school. And what they learned to capture, what they taught themselves, it became Porcelain War.
Wow. And tell me, Slava, you started as it is an animation project. And was the animation project the did that feed into what you actually do in the film, or was that a different kind of project?
It's absolutely different kind. We were really surprised that this idea to use animation in our movie, it's Brendan's and Aniela's idea. And from the very beginning, I not understood why we need animation, and only in process I understood it's amazing opportunity. Animation gave us a language to speak about the terrors of war without showing them like a news does, because news gets old quickly, but beauty never. And also it was so important for us to be focused on our culture, because our culture, our art, as part of our identity, it's important, it's main target of this invasion, because aggressor trying to destroy our identity, trying to destroy our culture, because this, since the start of big war, our museums were destroyed, our universities were destroyed, and so many our artists and writers and teachers, any people who contribute culture were killed on front line, killed in their own kitchen and bedroom, because Russia shelling districts of apartment houses, and killed especially on occupied territory. And we cannot fix this anyway. Nobody can bring these people back to life, because these Russians killing future of our culture and our art. And it's our responsibility and our duty now to work instead of all these people, make something new and rebuild future of our culture and our art. Because this animation gave us amazing opportunity to make more art, to create more art for our movie. And also we had not a time machine to show something about our peaceful past in Crimea, for example. It's boring just show the photos. But this amazing Blue studio in Poland help us to use Anya's language, Anya's artistic language. Anya's language is very special and very metaphoric. And Anya never drew on figurines, something like explosion or ruins or refugees. Her language is really metaphoric. She painted for our movie 3 figurines about our peaceful past in Crimea, about our present in war and our dreams for the future. But these Blue Studio, they get all photos of all our painting, 20 years of work. And they really deeply investigate Anya's style, and they was able to illustrate Anya's stories and Andrei's stories and my stories using this language so easy, so understandable even for kids.
You weren't actually making your own lives easier by incorporating animation. That must have added a lot of time and effort into the process. But it does work. It works marvelously, I think. So tell me, were you in the Crimea when Russia invaded the Crimea in 2014?
Our native city is Kharkiv. We lived in Crimea almost whole year, but we spent winter in Kharkiv with our relatives and parents. And we lived in Crimea in winter 13 and never returned. Yeah. Andrei was in Crimea, our cinematographer. He was born in Crimea, and he was in Crimea in Theodosia when annexion of invasion to Crimea was started, and he returned to Kharkiv later.
I haven't been to Kharkiv, but I've spent some time in Odessa. I was on the jury of the film festival there. Before that, and before 2014, I was in Yalta to make pilgrimage to Chekhov's house. So I feel very affectionate towards the country because I had, very good time there. But I think that what must have been difficult. Well, I guess that to arrive at the film that you've arrived at, you must have shot an absolutely enormous amount of material, and I was interested to know whether the actual war material in Bakhmut and so on, that's all shot by the squad that Andrei belongs to. Is that right, or that you belong to, Slava?
Andrei was civilian. I was serving in Ukrainian army at that time, but I never filmed on front line. I was scared because I can miss something important. I have not so big battle experience. It was really scary for me to be focused on something else because it might be dangerous for my friends. But my friends, when Brandon sent to us all these body cameras and additional drone to film rock drones of our unit, I very careful asked my friends from my unit, are you really ready to use this body camera? It looks dangerous. What do you think about this? And they just grab these cameras and they say, we will do it because it's important. Because Brandon can explain what they say. And it was an unbelievable conversation from front line, from shelter, under shelling, between the mission, through satellite internet.
We started talking with them, and both Slav and I were asking them how they felt about using the cameras. And they said
Yeah.
if we can capture, if we can share what we're going through when we wake up in the morning, maybe somebody else doesn't have to be in our shoes in the future.
Yeah, it's very visceral, that footage.
Yeah, it was absolutely harrowing, and it was really remarkable to see. It was an act of bravery for them, but they were also so focused on trying to learn. They like Slava was saying, they went down to a bunker. We'd be on satellite internet. They'd take out a notepad and they'd say, "What do we need to know?" And we'd go through technical things, and they were like, "No, but talk to us about where we should point the camera, what that means." So we said, "Okay, this is a close-up. This is a wide establishing shot. If the sun is like this, maybe the drone could follow like that. This is a tracking shot." And they started to really incorporate these things. And because they're home contractors and doctors, graphic designers that taught themselves to become soldiers, they wanted to learn something new, something positive, something that could maybe make a difference, a new kind of impact. And so they really took it upon themselves, and collectively, between Slava and Andrei and his unit, they filmed over 500 hours of footage. So it was an enormous quantity of, really determination to share not a version of it, but a totality of really multifaceted reality. And it was everything from these wide vistas of battlefields to conversations and testimonials to Slava and Andrei's curiosity with nature, not in any sort of B-roll or a cutaway. I realized that wasn't something that I'd even taught them about. And yet, during shelling, they were filming light, sunlight, filtering through leaves. And I thought, this must have incredible importance because they don't know what B-roll is. This has meaning to them. This is what they're protecting. This is what inspires their love for their home and their work as artists. And so that nature became an incredibly important part of the film.
And were you on board while they were shooting at any stage, or were you directing via Zoom? Or
yes, this is a very, very important question, Christopher. I want to come with a crew. We plan to travel to Kharkiv and to bring a team, camera operator, boom operator, everything. But we had sent one camera, and what Slava and Andrei filmed, it was so personal, it was so intimate. I felt if I'm there observing and you're in someone's home, it shifts the dynamic. And I thought, this is the ultimate opportunity to have a truly pure verite recorded through the eyes of artists, but they're filming themselves. They have a little dog, Frodo, you see in the film. If I'm there, he's going to be looking at the lens. But if it's Andrei filming, it's like Slava's brother, and it's completely unique experience. And so we said, no, we will work in deep collaboration, but at a great distance. And we use this distance to our advantage. And it was the most magical thing, because what we would do is in the mornings, we would go on Zoom with an interpreter. We would review dailies. And sometimes during the translation, at the very beginning, we were really frustrated because we couldn't just speak directly to one another. We made the film without talking directly. But what happened in this time we were waiting is we began to sketch, and the sketches became storyboards, and the storyboards diagrams for shots and ideas, and we looked at paintings that we loved, sculptures that we loved, and this universal language of visual art, it connected us from the first day. And so in this way, we could have a totally fluid conversation despite being across the world.
And did you have to have a number of interpreters? Were there Ukrainian interpreters and Russian interpreters? And
yes, there were two parts of it. During the Zoom, the whole film was very consistently done by Katerina, who's Anya's half sister, who knows them, so they're family, and she's interpreting. And then during the post process, as we receive dailies, there's a linguistic phenomenon in Ukraine where there's a very proactive transition for many native Russian speakers to embrace speaking in Ukrainian. So there was a huge mixture of languages, a lot of Russian, a lot of Ukrainian, times where they were switching back and forth. So we needed not only to have many translators, but those who were well versed in both languages, and the linguist as well, who was a published author and was really, really curious about this transitional phase and honoring all of the meaning and the idiosyncratic phrases that they were coming up with to find English equivalents that would have the same emotional truth to it. And even the humor that they were using to cope with this time to make sure it cut through the subtitles. So we put in an enormous amount of energy into each word.
Talk to me about your experience with audiences with this film, because I imagine that you must have found people all over the world who were really personally affected by it.
It's been a very, very unifying experience to share it with people from many different backgrounds, different cultures, different sides of the political spectrum. I think there's a lot of preconceived notions that people bring about what they say is this is a foreign conflict in Ukraine. And there's a misnomer intrinsically in that. It may be occurring within the boundaries of this country, but it affects all of us. And it is not a war that is fought by professional soldiers. It is civilians and peaceful people that feel they don't have another choice. So by creating an opportunity to step into their shoes, there's been an outpouring of emotion where people feel democracy and freedom are at huge risk around the world now more than ever. And the defiant act, not only that they're continuing to create art, that they're teaching themselves to fight, but that they chose to risk their lives to film this experience as a testimonial to that integrity of the human spirit. People are super moved by it, and that's a gift, I think, to everyone who participated, who was so brave to tell their story.
Yeah, I imagine that things are becoming ever more difficult in Ukraine. So it couldn't be more important, this kind of film, to reach as wide an audience as possible, because it is about the defense of humanism, really, isn't it?
I hope it's not about Ukraine and Ukrainians only. It's about all of us. Really, it's about success, because it's regular civilian people who are able to defend democracy, to preserve independence and keep humanity, and even develop culture is in so dark times. Also, people are afraid to watch war movie because war is horrible and nobody wants to be upset. But our responsibility as artists and filmmakers is to bring hope and inspiration from any situation, even from the middle of destruction.
Yes, and that's what you've succeeded in doing that, I must say. It really is a very it's not at all an oppressive or a frightening film. It's a film that says, this is what we hope people will do in these circumstances, and also we hope people will preserve the idea of being an artist. So as you have in the film, so it's very inspiring. While you're artists with guns, what's more important than the guns is the art. Yes,
it's not my choice and not my words, but when I was serving in Ukrainian army when we started this project, and I was able to work on film. Only because when I picked up my camera, someone picked up a rifle in my place, and I asked this teeny Katya in our movie, this girl, uh, is it good now you are fighting instead of me? It's not normal situations for me. And she answered me, now your camera, your weapon is much more impactful and much more important. Camera is much more impactful weapon as rifle.